on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
Fire burns fastest uphill. We took a big risk doing that, but it was our only choice. We had no way out. Fire behavior is a whole different science in and of itself, how it behaves in certain conditions, relative humidity and wind, and all that stuff factors in.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers, no one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, the Unabomber. Or alternatively Mark Dawson, who hasn't shaved his beard for lockdown and whose mother told him off this morning for looking more and more like Santa Claus.
Doesn't matter how old you are, you will always get told off by your mother. I'm similar. In fact, I've just been for a run. I feel like I'm bedraggled, and it's funnily enough, it's warm here today, like spring suddenly here.
It is warm, yeah.
And so I look terrible as well. But people don't have to look on YouTube. You can listen. Most people listen, don't they? And weirdly, Mark, I can't see you. You mount your laptop in a cubby hole. I don't know if John Stone should show a shot of what it is I see when I'm doing these interviews. So, he's arrived.
Just moving in. There you go. How's that?
There you go.
You can see me now.
I shall send that little. So people on YouTube will have seen what I put up with. Okay, look, we've got a few things to talk about today, including a really exciting interview with Lolo Page, a real life hero who has been a firefighter and done some amazing things in her life and is now writing romantic firefighting themed books. Very exciting, lives up there in Alaska. Lolo coming up in a moment. Before then, a couple of things to mention. I have a BookBub deal for one of our authors and Fuse books this week, a full BookBub deal, including the United States. I've not had a full one. I had an international one before. But I think I've had two international ones before. So I want to make sure I've got my ducks in a row with you, first of all. The first thing is that I have used it's in KU, Kindle Unlimited, so I've used the 5 free days time. They start 2 days before the day of the promotion on your advice and go to 2 days afterwards. The 18th of February is the promotion date. So my first question is, in terms of complying and making sure it's free, it's obviously I've offered it to BookBub as it's going to be a free book. Have I done everything? Do I need to go into the KDP dashboard and do anything else to the price structure? Or will it be free around the world? No, it should be free. It's always worth checking the day you set it to free. Just remember its Pacific time will be the time you see on the dashboard. So it's worth just checking that. I mean, now and again, you'll see a glitch. Very, very rare. But if you do it on the day, there would be time to ask for help if there's a problem. But no, that's it pretty much. Once the promotion is set, just make sure you've done I think it's a while since I've set a free run. All of your territories are included, so that should be fine. It's just a question of setting that in advance and off you go. Yeah. So obviously what I don't want to do is fall foul of the hallowed bub, because I want more in the future. So make sure that I don't blot my copybook. So yes, I'll do a test then on the 16th Pacific time, 8 a.m. I think it is, something like that, or midnight. I don't know. I'll double check and make sure it's 0 in all the territories listed on the BookBub deal. And then the other things that you should have in place for a BookBub deal. What else would you be doing, Mark? What's your advice to me? So is it the 16th or the 18th? 18th is the actual date of the promotion. So 3 days you've got. It's too late now for any of the things I would have suggested. So a fairly good strategy is to try. You could actually try is to book what we call kind of promo stacking. So you book promotions before and after the BookBub. The BookBub is your kind of tent pole, because that will be the one that drives the most traffic to the page and you'll get the most downloads. But I would definitely look to Freebooksy as kind of the next level below BookBub. There are some others. Robin Reed's is very good. This is sci-fi, isn't it? This is the story
of a storybook?
Yeah, it's sort of apocalyptic, near future.
Yeah, there are a few book. I think Book Barbarian. I don't write sci-fi, so I've never done one. But I think Book Barbarian is one of the better ones for that genre. But you would ideally book some around that so that you maximise the downloads in the time when it's free. So you might be able to. I mean, given that we're fairly friendly with the guys at FreeBooks, so it might be worth dropping them a line and just seeing if they've got any slots available for any time within that 5 days, and see what they say. It's probably a bit too late now, but you never know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll get onto them. I'll just have a quick look now whilst we're talking. And what about paid ads?
Yeah, you can definitely run. I mean, you can run free Facebook ads. Run some ads to the FreeBook for that 5 day period. See how you get on. I mean, the tricky thing with that is you haven't done a free one before, so it'll be quite difficult to work out what the read through is from a free book to a paid book, because you'll say you get 100,000 free downloads. If if it was an amazing promotion, it would be very difficult to know what you would expect, because people will download loads of free books, but to get them to open it and then read it is
actually this is not Robert's story. This is Kerry J. Donovan.
Okay.
Is his number one in his series, the Ryan Kane thriller series.
The principles are the same. The only thing is don't apply to Book Barbarian, because that's not thrillers.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the paid ads, I would run some, because you'll get lots of. You should find that those lead to downloads at a fairly decent rate. But the tricky thing is you won't know, because you've never done it before, what the read-through is that you can expect from book 1 to book 2, because it'll be different from when it was paid. So much less normally, much less, because it's free. As I said, most people won't open it.
Yeah.
So you try running some, but I wouldn't go nuts on the paid ads until you got a better handle on how this one performs.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got 5 days of free, so there's no harm in running $20 a day or something on a free promo for that. So, okay, good. All right, I'll make sure I've got all of that in a row. And I guess benchmarking is my best way of tracking. I do use links actually for the Facebook ad side of things, but in terms of BookBub, it's really just seeing what the difference is from your average. Obviously, you're going to have free books, and then it'll take a while, I suppose, to disseminate the read through and try and work that out.
It's very difficult, because you've got a very noisy signal at the moment, because you're promoting on all ad platforms. And that's for paid. Suddenly you're taking it off paid, going to free. It will be difficult to work out what the effect is. It's not impossible, but you won't be able to do it accurately. You just have to do your best to work out what the effect was. But you should see something.
Yes. Well, I hope so. Good. Okay. That's BookBub. Excited.
Good. Yeah. No, it's I would expect. I haven't done a free one for several years now, but I would expect 25 to 30,000 downloads, possibly more than that. Something like that.
Wow. I suppose the other thing to make sure is that the front matter and back matter are as good as they can be.
Especially for the mailing list. Yeah, I mean, a mailing list is a very good opportunity to build that for Kerry, because they'll be getting a lot of lots and lots of eyeballs will be on that book. So you've got to think, do you want the sign up to his list or to read through into book 2? You can put both, but you just got to make sure that's optimal. Make sure everything's working. And I did it today. Yeah. I won't mention who this author was, but he's done very well recently and hit number 1 in the store in the UK. And I just checked his website out, and it had a 509 error on it, which is bandwidth.
Right.
Possibly because he's doing very well, getting a lot more traffic than he's used to. But that site was down. It's back up again now. But just make sure that everything, all the links are going to the right places before you, if you've got enough time to change them.
Yeah, all working. Good. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed for that very public advice. I hope everyone else can use it if you get those hallowed BookBub deals. I have to say the featured deals I've done before, which were international, were excellent and really gave us a good bounce on Robert's book. So it'd be an interesting experience for this. Now, before we move on to Lolo's interview, I think you are also turning your mind to one of our mini strategy-based courses on book launching.
Yeah, I'm going to do a smaller course, much smaller actually, and very cheap. So, or should I say, kind of very cost effective, much less expensive than the other courses. And probably going to look at that this week. I've finished Atticus. That's gone to my editor, and I just fancy a little break before I jump into the next Milton book. So there's lots of things that have been on my list of things to do for ages, and this is one of them. So I mentioned it in the Facebook group maybe 6 months ago, and at least 600 people said they were interested in that course. So I better do it, I suppose. So it's going to be about launching, and I'll do it with regard to the last Milton launch, this Atticus launch. And we'll look at kind of the pre-launch, the launch, and the post-launch stages, the things I do with various ads, emails I send out, things like BookBub, pre-release alerts. We've got some useful stats on how effective they can be. BookBub featured new deal alerts, BookBub ads, Facebook ads, Amazon ads, all of those kinds of things that I'm running on when I have a launch going live. So I think it'll be quite good. It's kind of been stewing away in my head for ages, so it'll be quite good to get it out there.
Yeah, good. Okay. Dare I ask you for a timetable on this as well?
Well, hopefully record it this week. Yeah, a couple of days worth of recording probably, but we'll see.
Good. Well, that'll be a nice compliment, certainly for the 101 course as well, which is about sort of front end of your career, which we will be opening up. We haven't actually set dates for that yet, but I'm hoping soon, March, probably. Soonish. Okay, good. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. We have our guest this week then. I'm very excited to talk to Lolo Page. As I say, she is a former firefighter, had quite an incredible life. We both have a love of the Steven Spielberg film Always, which does get an honourable mention in this interview. And let's hear from Lolo, then Mark and I will be back for a chat.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Lolo Page, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. We are talking to you from deep up north, but deep up sounds weird. Deep is normally south, isn't it? What's the opposite? You're shallow north. That doesn't make no sense. Let's just say you're in the north. You're in Alaska.
In the North Country, north of 60 degrees latitude.
Wow, 60 degrees. Where does the Arctic Circle start? Is that 60 or no, it's higher than that, 90, is it?
It's north of 60, up above Fairbanks. It's up by a place called Coldfoot. That's how I always mark it. I used to travel the Dalton Highway, so I became familiar with such landmarks. Yeah, well, we're going to talk a little bit about your past in this interview. And we should say, of course, Craig Martell, who many people will know well of 20 Books fame, is, I guess, up the road from you. But he is, I think, the other side of the Arctic Circle. He's up close to it, that's for sure. And he's much darker than we are down here. We're considered the banana belt. So there's the tropical south. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, I bet it's pretty cold there. It's not too bad. It's about, I think I'm looking out at 10 degrees. Okay. There you go. At least it's above zero. Yeah. Okay. Well, Lolo, we're going to talk to you about your blossoming author career, which sort of grew to life this year, but also just start to talk to us about your background, because I know it feeds into your first novel and is an important part of probably who you are and where you got to today. You've had quite an extraordinary career. It was a lot of fun. It was tough to leave the day job. It was pretty exciting. In the beginning, I was floundering around like any early 20-year-old. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just kind of drifted around from one job to another. And then I got into the forestry curriculum at the University of Montana, which led me into the firefighting world, because that's part of the curricula there, and studied fire science and got a job doing wildland firefighting as a seasonal. So that led me into a career with another agency in the Department of the Interior, U.S. Department of the Interior, the Bureau of Land Management. And they have a agency up here called the Alaska Fire Service. And so I worked for them for a few summers. And that got me into the whole firefighting
into
thing.
Wildland firefighting. And you've got to talk us through this a little bit, because is this managing the sort of tactical level, the way fires are fought? Are you on the ground with equipment?
I was on what they call a handline crew. So I was one of the yellow shirts you always see on the news when they're marching single file to and from fires, and they have their Pulaskis in their hand and that kind of thing. We had overhead teams over us. We had fire bosses. It's based on a military hierarchy.
The sort of gold, silver, and bronze thing.
Yeah, you have your incident commander, your strike team leader, that kind of thing. You have your situations department, your planning, your air attack, all that kind of thing. When I got into it, I was so amazed at how smooth it all goes when you have all the coordination together, and it's very organized.
And happening over a big area, and probably many fronts. I imagine fires don't neatly organize themselves into a single front for you.
No. Well, the thing about fire that was confusing for me in the beginning is the way it burns. Especially in these mountainous regions, you'll have the main one start, of course, and then as the thing ramps up and it gains power and the rate of spread just starts booking with the wind, then you get these things called spot fires, and they just throw these sparks and fire out front of the main fire, and then you'll have it burning on one ridge and then nothing in the ravine, and then over on another ridge there's another fire. It doesn't go like how when you pour liquid on the ground and it spreads, it doesn't do that. And that's what was always confusing for me. So it just kind of here and there. And I mean, surely it does, move as one unit. But
yeah. And sometimes I guess it's unpredictable. You must have had some hairy moments.
Oh, yes. I was on a crew up by the Eielson Air Force Base fire. This was back in the early or late 80s. It was a long time ago. And the winds came up, and we were on a finger ridge. And a finger ridge is where you have a mountain, and then you'll have like 5 ridges on a mountain. Up here in Alaska, that's pretty common. For example, Mount McKinley, which became Mount Denali, is like that. Anyway, so we were on the wrong finger ridge, and we were in the path of the main fire. We thought we were on the next one over on the flank. So the retardant plane came over us, dumped a load. We knew we were in the wrong spot, and we had to get out. So we had to climb up this steep mountain, our whole crew, all 18 of us, and we got away from it. But it was pretty hairy. It was pretty scary.
So I was just going to say, you can't outrun a fire, can you? And you've got to make good tactical decisions at that point in the direction you go. Particularly, I guess, if you're going uphill. That sounds, frankly, terrifying. Yes,
fire burns fastest uphill. We took a big risk doing that, but it was our only choice. We had no way out. Fire behavior is a whole different science in and of itself. How it behaves in certain conditions, relative humidity and wind, and all that stuff factors in. So, yeah.
And you have fire retardant dumped on you? Was that deliberate? Did they know you were there and were helping you out, or did you?
Yes, they did. Okay. Yes, he saw us down there, and he saw that we were in harm's way, so he dumped a load on us.
Right.
we filed back into base camp with these pink shirts, and then everybody looks at you like, "Oh, you are where you weren't supposed to be." Yeah. So
wow.
We got in trouble for that.
But you made it out of there, and fantastic job to do. And I guess probably, were there many female wildland firefighters when you started?
No. In forestry, there weren't, it was mostly male dominated and just a handful of females. And same way when I got into it with the Forest Service and worked at the smoke jump base in Missoula. But, I grew up with 4 brothers, and I have, I worked in male-dominated fields my whole life, so for me, it wasn't that big a deal. It was fun, and I just got caught up in the excitement of the whole thing. Certainly, you have to you have to toe the line, I guess they call it, and carry your weight, so to speak. Because when you're 5'2" and you walk up to a bunch of guys and they're all ready to go out on the fire line, they kind of cross their arms and they look at you like, is she going to be able to do this? So yeah, the onus is on you to measure up and do the job and all of that. So
I'm sure you wouldn't want it any other way. But to have to pull your weight. Well, fascinating and amazing career to have gone through. And I'm curious as to how that's led you to the point not only of publishing your first novel this year, but also a filmmaker.
Well, more of an actor, I guess. And I started out with community theater and in Missoula. In fact, JK Simmons was the person that auditioned me for my very first musical down there. He was going to the University of Montana. His dad was department chair and such. And so I fainted on that first audition. And when he got his Academy Award, I emailed him and I go, because we used to call him Kim. I go, "Hey, Kim, remember me? I'm that person that fainted on the first audition." He goes, "I remember, and thank you," because I was congratulating him on his Oscar. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah. So apart from fainting on your first audition, you've done some acting all the way through to sort of indie films.
Yes. The community theater, I did that for decades and picked up a lot of stage experience. So when Alaska received its first film tax incentive, Hollywood came up here for about 5 or 6 years and shot some major motion pictures. So I auditioned for those, and I auditioned for some speaking parts, which was very fun. That was fun. But I got in as an extra, and so I got to work in scenes with a lot of people, and it was a wonderful learning experience. I didn't even have to go to LA or anything. I did it all up here.
Wow. Oh, well, that future's still ahead of you. I mean, you mentioned JK Simmons. I'm only really aware of him for his later work. I'm not sure what he did younger in life, but he's been a fantastic older character actor, if I could say that as politely as possible.
Yes.
So yeah, maybe that's ahead of you. But anyway, let's move on to the writing then, which is what we want to talk. Yeah, let's talk about the writing. So that became, I guess, was a bit like all of us. So you kind of have a novel in the bottom drawer, and then this year happened, and I think it spurred you into action.
Yes. Well, I did a lot of legal writing and technical writing for the U.S. federal government. So, they sent me to a lot of writer training. So by the time I got out, I wanted to do the creative writing, and I started out locally. I wrote op-eds and newspapers and articles for magazines and newspapers here in Alaska, and then went national and all of that. One of the articles was the near miss we had on that summer with fighting fire. And that picked up an Alaska Press Club award, that article did. So I was pretty shocked. And one of the judges suggested to me, "Why don't you write a novel and make this like a climactic point in the novel?" And I went, "Oh, okay." So I did. I did. I wrote it up, but I wrote it as women's fiction. I just wrote it from a female point of view and the journey through all that. I went to a writers' conference in Pasadena and met another writer author, a very well-known one. And I said, "If I bribe you with a glass of wine, will you tell me how to publish this?" And she goes, "Make it a romance." And it'll, she says, because that's a lot of folks read romances. So I did. I mean, I didn't read romance. I didn't know how to write one. So she said, "Go join the Romance Writers of America, and they'll help you out." And they did. I took the classes, and I got in with my local chapter, who helped me learn how to write romance. And I did that about a year or two before the pandemic hit. And I had been working on the story, turning it into a romance. And so when that happened, I kind of went, "Oh, this is go time," because you don't know what the future is going to bring with this thing. And that was in February or March. So I just kicked it. And, of course, like I was saying with Mark's class, I'd watch a module, and then I'd do, because my time was so crunched. So
that's quite a feat from a virtual standing start. Although you had the women's fiction, did you have that written, drafted, or just outlined when you first started?
I had it drafted. So it was pretty much a rewrite. I had to take and insert another male character, main point of view. for him, which wasn't hard. I consulted a retired Alaskan smoke jumper up here, and he helped me with that. He was invaluable with that.
Okay.
So,
and how did you plot this book then? So you joined RWA, started, I guess, to read romance books and understand the things you've got to hit. Because, romance readers are expectant, aren't they, of the points?
Oh, they're insatiable. They're insatiable.
Yeah, particularly certain subgenres. And if you get those, if you miss those or don't do them, try to surprise people. I don't think that works particularly well in the romance world.
Yes, and I love romantic suspense. And I up till then I was reading thrillers. I was reading, a lot of the. I love the Tom Clancy books, and the writer of those books, the current one, lives here in my hometown in Alaska. I read his books. I was reading all those kinds of action adventure things, and so I made that into the romance. I write that into my books. I love the action and adventure and all that, living on the edge kind of stuff.
And did you
adrenaline?
Yeah, well, I'm sensing that. And did you plot this in detail before you started drafting?
I had some journals that I had kept back then. They weren't extensive or detailed, but it reminded me of different events that happened during the whole fighting scenario. And I had photos from back then. So I tacked them all up, and I just did a scene list following structure. I followed hero's journey, I think, to start as a beginner. A lot of people say, well, don't just rely on that. But it really helped me. And, I'm a Star Wars fan. So that structure for me was easy. So I did that. And I made a scene list. After that conference, I got on a flight from LA to Anchorage, and I wrote my outline scene list. The next day was NaNoWriMo. So I wrote it in pretty much a month. I slopped over into December. And then I just worked on it like crazy. Got tired of it, set it aside. One of those things you go back and forth to and write other things. In the meantime, I wrote 2 other novels that are fermenting in my computer.
Fermenting.
Yeah.
I like that expression. That's what my novel's doing. It's fermenting. There you go. One day it'll be like a rare Scotch whiskey. It's been laid down for a long time.
That's right.
So how did you find the writing experience? You say you got fed up with and moved away, which is a fairly normal experience. Even for very experienced, very successful writers can often sort of not like their manuscript in the middle part of it. But did you find a confidence of novel writing based on your writing experience for newspapers?
It took a while. I gathered the confidence from being published in the shorter things, and I did some interviews, and I did things like that for print. And so that confidence was there, but the novel was a different cat. And I really had a rough time in the beginning with the characters. And my critique group kept saying, I don't like her, I don't like him, and that kind of thing. So I struggled there for a long time. And then I just put it down, and I read like 10 books. I just read one after the other. I went to the library and checked out a stack. I just bulldozed through those. And that really loosened up my mind. And then I realized what path I wanted the characters on. And so I studied David Corbett and people who write about character and that kind of thing. I joined One Stop for Writers, Angela Ackerman. I did the emotional thesauri and that whole thing. So I just, I read everything I can. I felt like I was cramming for an MFA, cramming for a final, because it's just reading and studying everything I could.
Yeah.
So by the time revision hit, I had wanted to give up. I was going to throw this thing in the recycle bin on my computer. I was so frustrated. And then I went, I met Craig Martell, and he said, Simonson, he goes, get the thing published. Just do it. And I'm like, he goes, what are you waiting for? He says, you're a good enough writer to do this. Do it. And so I thought, okay. So I went to the 20 books in Vegas, and wow, that was an experience. And I just picked up all that motivation and everything and came home and got her done, So between November and February of last year, I just booked.
Wow. And what were the key things you picked up at 20 books?
Oh, wow. Well, I loved Mark's sessions, of course. And I have to mention Jamie Albright. She's probably going to get tired of me mentioning her, but I do, because I locked on to what she was saying up there on the stage. She says, I went from 0 to 100 miles an hour, and she just laid out how she did it by sticking to it and not giving up, and reading everything she could, studying everything she could about indie publishing. And it really had an impact on me. So I took everything she said, and I just tried to emulate that, and it worked. She's right. If you don't give up and you stick to it and you educate yourself, you can do it.
And then you started to implement some of these things. And how did that go? When did you actually publish?
May 31st of this year, May 31st, 2020.
Yeah.
So I've only been in this gig for 6-7 months now. But I hit it real hard on the promotion, and boy, that paid off. I took advantage of all the free promotion you can do. I did the radio interviews and different interviews, such as this one. And I just got the thing out there. In fact, one of my Australia authors said, boy, I see this book everywhere. How are you doing that? And I'm like, where have you seen it? I mean, you throw it out there and you do the ads and you do all these things, but you don't know really where it's all going or where it all is.
So it went well.
Yes.
Can you give us a little hint of how well?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I was advised to start out with KDP Select as a beginner, and I'm glad I did it. It wasn't great to sell print or ebooks so much unless I did the promotions. And right off the bat, I got a BookBub International deal, which really helped.
Yeah.
So that brought in the UK, Canada, and Australian readers for me. And boy, they've stuck with me. A lot of those organic readers that, but again, a lot of it's in KU. And so the page reads have been really high. And when I did a free promotion, then of course that really, there were 9,000 downloads of ebooks on that. And out of that, I built my subscriber list, and the ratings doubled, and I got more reviews and that kind of thing. So those things are very useful for visibility.
Yeah.
And that's what I was primarily going for. I knew that on a first book, not to try to earn on it because, I'm unknown. I had to get out there and get visibility. And so that's what I've been focusing on. So as far as the visibility factor, it's gone really well. I still have to work on sales, though. I still have to do that.
Well, that, as you say, that is more difficult with one book, but you've got 130 odd very strong reviews on there. So that's obviously going to be a fantastic foundation for you. And I'm assuming this is now going to be a series. I mean, is it going to be a series stroke serial? Will it be standalone books in the same universe or the same characters? How's it going to work?
Yes, it's a series. I'm writing first I'm starting with a trilogy, and they're all, the thing that binds them together is the Aurora crew, the firefighting crew. And then I take different characters from each for each subsequent book. Last night I typed the end on the second book.
Wow.
So I'm getting faster.
Congrats.
Thank you. So that one's hopefully going to be released in February or March. I haven't decided which yet, but one thing I learned on the first one is I kind of rushed it at the end, and I don't want to do that again. I think you need to take your time on these releases. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to decide whether to stay exclusive or go wide. I'm wrestling with that too, because you have to have a plan. If you're going to go wide, you really do. You have to have that strategy laid out. Yeah.
So you've got a couple more books planned for this series, and then any plans beyond that, different series, or carry on with the same thing, or?
Yes, I have 2 other novels fermenting.
Oh, they're the fermenting ones. Yeah, right.
And they're launching 2 other series. One is, they're all under romance. The other one's a crime thriller series with Alaska State Troopers that I wrote a couple summers ago. And another one is what I call the Wanderlust series with baby boomer characters, older characters. And that's a travel series. I was traveling with a group from California for a couple years up until COVID. And so I kept journals of that, and then I turn them into novels when I get back
Okay.
home. And that's worked out real well.
So is this you now, novelist? Is this the next stage in your varied careers?
Yes, I think so. I really like this novel business. I really do. What I like about it is all the people I've met. I mean, I love all the authors and writers I've met along the way, and how generous everyone is with their knowledge and their expertise. I love that. I'm just amazed how willing everybody is to help the new people like me, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it is a great community for that. And 20 Books and SPF, I should say, of course, are great communities to be a part of for that. Your background then, how important do you think that is that's enabled you to write this novel that's obviously captured people's imaginations? I mean, could you envisage yourself, well, your other books are also based on life experience, but could you envisage yourself in writing a series that had nothing to do with the life you've led?
Yes, the crime thriller series, I've not experienced any of. The only thing that I had firsthand experience were all the locations and the settings in Alaska for that one. But I was a big James Bond fan, so it's along those lines.
Cool.
International espionage and geopolitical thriller kind of stuff.
Is your hero British?
Yeah. So, yeah, I want to expand my universe, so to speak. The firefighting one has been fun, and I enjoy it because I did it in, real life, but I also want to spread my wings in other areas too. I have 2 historical novel series planned. One that starts in Ireland that goes to Butte, Montana. It's kind of like on a Poldarkian thing with mining and that kind of thing. And then I have another Lonesome Dovey thing on the other side of my family that cowboys that settle Montana. So I have a lot of projects planned. There's just not enough hours in the day.
Yes, I know that feeling. And your in terms of authenticity, your book, I'm assuming you probably couldn't bring yourself to stretch the truth too far on that. Is it quite realistic based in terms of its firefighting aspects?
It is. I was very careful to stay true to the accuracy of those scenes when I wrote those. And I ran them past several active firefighters in California and down lower 48. And of course, my smoke jumpers up here in Alaska. And they did have to rein me in a few times on a few things that it wasn't totally accurate. But I mean, that's why I like the sensitivity readers and the professional consultants on those kinds of things. For this book I'm doing now, I introduced arson as the crime, the suspense part of the thing. And so I consulted John McClane, who's a well-known author of books about wildland firefighting, and he writes the nonfiction aspects, and he writes what happened on a lot of deaths that have happened over the years on different fires. And he's been helping me with the arson and aspects of this novel. So I'm pretty grateful to have his help on this.
It does seem like there's been a lot of wildfires in the last couple of years, isn't it? I mean, not just in the States, in California,
Yes.
places like that, but also in Australia where they've been devastated by them. I don't know, I guess it's climate change and there must be something behind it, but the last couple of years it's been a very high profile aspect of life, which probably has helped from your book point of view, because people always sort of get intrigued by the background and the personalities in these situations they see on the news.
Yes, that's true. originally when I planned this series, I'd planned to do one in different states. And I had Alaska spark, California firestorm, and Montana blazing. But as the devastation piled up in those areas and there was a lot of loss of property and lives, I backed away from that because it was just too fresh. It was too raw. And my cousins lost her house in Paradise, California in a bad fire. And she was asking me, she says, please, in your books, don't write about death anymore on these fires because it's been too real for us. And, I really sat back and I thought about it. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to keep the series in Alaska and then, just stick to things that won't be so close to home for people.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good decision at the moment. It's going to feel raw, isn't it, for lots of people? And as I say, not just in the US, but other parts of the world as well. And then you've had a bit of a dabble with film. And it does seem to me, one of my favourite films is Always, by the way, which is a firefighting film by Steven Spielberg from the...
You've seen that. I love that movie. I talk about it a lot in my book. Oh, I love that movie.
I adore Always. It's one of the finest Spielberg films. I just love it for its naturalistic conversation, and they're all fantastic in it.
And Audrey Hepburn is in it.
Yes, she is, with her sunglasses. Do you know, it's made me think, during this conversation, I've made a little note to myself to watch it again. It's been years since I've seen it, and it's I adore it as a film. So it's a good subject for films. And you've got a bit of a background in here. Is this something you're thinking about or any overtones going on?
Well, yes. I plan to write the screenplay for it. I wrote one before about fire, and it took 4th place in an LA Independent Film Festival a couple years back. So that gave me confidence in the screenplay arena.
Wow.
So yeah. And then I submitted it to other companies who adapt novels to film. So I'll see what happens with that. And I'm debating on I'm working on getting a film agent to help me with that. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And maybe you can do a bit of acting in it. Finally get that speaking part you deserve.
No, I don't want to, I'd rather write lines for actors now instead of doing all that.
You're above all that
I can
now.
stay in my pajamas. I don't have to put on makeup and do all that stuff and go on camera. I think
if they make your film, they've got to give you a little walk-on part at some point.
They did that with Diana Gabaldon in Outlander.
Oh, there you go. Although, yes, you can write your part. You can be the Audrey Hepburn of your novel, of your film. It's been illuminating. I don't mean that as a terrible pun, Lola, but it's just been interesting to hear how you've transitioned from a incredibly active and, I have to say, courageous life into somebody now bringing some joy on the artistic world of things. A less dangerous career you're in now, but an interesting experience of adapting your life to a book, which is, I guess, what this has been about.
Yes, and the pandemic has given me pause too. I've been studying the market and the analytics and such, and people are turning to feel-good stories now, of course, and romance provides that. You have a happily ever after, which is a requirement in romance, and I like that. I just want to make people feel good and make them laugh when they're reading it. I put a lot of humor in these. I know that in my family, whenever things went south, they dealt with it with humor, and I guess I have that gene, so I put that in the books.
Yeah.
And I just really want it to be something that is entertaining and has meaning, and that there's heroes at home as well as abroad, and all of this kind of thing. And I just want to make people feel good, feel better about their situations, and less anxious and fearful, I guess.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Well, I think romance novelists are lifesavers in their own way. You've gone from saving lives in one way to another. Well,
some of the reviews I've received, I received from a gentleman a couple days ago that I just dissolved. He said he was a firefighter, and he was saying how the story provided hope when all was lost, kind of thing. And he really liked that aspect. And it was just, one of those reviews you get where you could just feel the emotion coming from the reader to you. And that one review, I mean, it doesn't take that many words to keep an author motivated like that. When you hear those kinds of things, you go, oh my gosh, I reached one reader. I got one reader. And it just makes it all worthwhile.
That's what it's all about.
That's what we're doing this for, is for the readers.
Absolutely. Lola, thank you so much indeed for coming on. I hope we'll meet in person maybe at the next 20 books next year.
I'm registered.
There you go. And we'll have a drink and I'll hear a few more of those stories.
Okay, that sounds great. It's really been an honor talking to you. I've been listening to you on some of the modules I have, and you're really good at narration. Gosh, you should narrate books. You're really good at it.
That's very kind of you. I'm not sure I'd find the time in the day to do another thing on my thing, but that's very kind of you, Lola. Thank you very much. And thank you so much indeed for coming on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There you go. We've been calling her Lola because John Dyer's dog is called Lola. And I think somebody said Lola once, but it's Lolo. Lolo Page, a really wonderful woman, great person to speak to, quite inspiring, been running around on mountains, keeping people safe in fire situations in ways that you and I probably couldn't imagine outside our comfort zone, but we do thank the people who do that sort of thing on our behalf. And now turning our hand to writing. There's romance in firefighters, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say, speak for yourself. You may not be running around saving people on mountains, but you don't know what I get up to in my spare time.
That's true, I don't. But I'm going to bet that you don't. But you do have that electric bike. Maybe you can get there quicker on that.
I do. Actually, weirdly enough, this is completely out of tangent, but there's a guy in Salisbury who runs something called Gravity. He's basically Tony Stark. You've probably seen him on... He can fly, basically. He's got
those things, yes.
Yeah, he has engines on jet engines on his hands and his feet, and he can fly. And one of the applications for this is for mountain rescue. So if you think if you're up a mountain, maybe not able to get a helicopter up there, and to get up on foot could take ages. But if even if you're 200 or 300 feet up, just to basically follow the contour of the mountain, just fly up. So, anyway, that's we should suggest that to Lolo. Maybe we can get a jetpack sent up to Alaska.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. I think the Navy are very interested in it. They seem to demo it a lot. I've seen this guy. There's some YouTube footage of him buzzing around warships. I don't know how long it lasts for. And also, it looks to me like you need decent biceps, I reckon, to hold that in place the whole time. I mean, no problem for me.
I'm fairly sure you're not going to be asked to test fly that one.
I have got some dumbbells, but that's just to help my driving, my golf. Okay, good. Right. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. I think that's probably it for this week. You and I will both... I need to get my daughter to cut my hair. I probably need to have a shave, and I need to run in the morning so that I'm not sitting like this in my trackies all day. That's my look after yourself thing. What are you doing to look after yourself this week?
Walk the dog. That's basically
nothing.
That's it. Basically, I'm too busy to do much else. So walk the dog in the mornings.
Yeah. Get out the house is a very important thing, even if there is finally some light at the end of the tunnel, we think, in this pandemic, certainly in the UK at the moment. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much indeed, Lolo. Great to speak to you. Thank you, Mark, indeed. We'll be back this time next week. Every Friday, you get the Self-Publishing Show into your inbox and all the various channels. We do love your reviews and your ratings, so thank you very much if you're dropping those into iTunes or YouTube or anywhere else. We read every comment. There was a really weird comment last week. I still don't know what it means. That called Boo Walker, what did it call him? A spud.
A spud, yeah. I was going to say potato, but it was a spud.
We don't know whether it was a compliment or an insult.
I don't think it was a compliment, but
Really?
Well, no. I know when I was at school, if you called someone a spud, that wasn't a compliment. It was you were having a bit of a dig. So I don't know.
Yeah, but
perhaps it's someone from my school days, and it wasn't about Boo. It was about me.
But when we're at school
in the 40s,
people first started saying wicked, meaning good, and now every word that we used to use that meant bad means good. So I don't know whether stud That's Spud, not Stud. We know what Stud means. Anyway, maybe that person could get back to us at some point and let us know
maybe
their
not.
true feelings. And I could decide whether to delete the comment or not. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much indeed. All that remains for me to say is it's a goodbye from him.
And a goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishing show. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.